You know, people can't afford regular investments today, which is why you'll see a lot of people not only moving away from real estate because they can't afford it, but also moving away from the stock market or treasury or bonds or things like that, because first of all, it's boring boomer generation investments. Second of all, who wants to wait 10, 20, 30 years for your bonds to mature or your real estate to get to a price where you think you can do something with it? That's before obviously paying all the taxes on this and that. Today, the market is more relegated, I'll use that word, to the younger investor, because the boomers are boring. The younger versions, the millennials, the Gen Zs, and everything under, if they're smart enough, are moving into smarter, funner investments. This is Collect Dex, an index of whatever collection is most popular today. It's the Pokémon One Piece paradigm. So another car video for you guys. I apologize, I forgot my mic today, so if my audio is not 100% crispy, completely my fault, but I hope you'll stick around anyway. What I'm about to say is kind of important to give you some future sight and some context as to what's going on today and why your favorite TCGs are exploding and why you can't get them. So let me start with this. This weekend, I actually attended two One Piece OP14 Azure Seas 7 pre-release events. The first one, I got absolutely smoked. And for those that don't know, these pre-release events are events for the new sets that come out. So they invite a bunch of players. You pay like a $30 entrance fee. They give you 6 packs. You open those packs and you make your playable deck with whatever comes out of those packs. So I did that. I went to 2, which I made a video on that probably you guys didn't watch, but go check that out if you didn't. At the very first event, which was on Saturday, I went in there, I pulled some cards. I pulled a pretty cool card called Rosiante Law, which is cool. I think it's worth about $70 pre-release, which is a hit better than what most people get. There was actually a guy in that same event that actually got to pull the Manga Mihawk card, which at the time of recording, that card's about $1,700 raw without grading. So what a day for that guy. Needless to say, it was my first One Piece TCG event, first pre-release. So it was pretty hard for me. I actually got absolutely smoked, but it was super fun. That was Saturday. Sunday rolls around. I usually have clients on Sunday, but I finished up early and my later clients canceled, so I had some free time. I ended up going to another local gaming store event for the One Piece OP14 pre-release on Sunday, and I entered. Now what happened there is that it was the same format. You enter the tournament, you pay about $35, you get 6 packs. Out of those 6 packs, I pulled 2 back-to-back super rare cards. Number 1, I pulled this one called Ground Death. This is a crocodile event card, and this is an alternate art as I understand it. At the time of recording, this thing is going for about $200 raw. So after I opened that pack, the very next pack, I got this card. And in Pokemon terms, it would probably be a special illustration rare, Sengoku. I don't know the technical terminology in One Piece, but this card's about $500 raw at the time of recording right now. At this tournament event with tournament packs, I pulled $700 of value out of my tournament packs, which in the store that day was amazing. Nobody else even came close. So out of the 2 days of pre-release tournaments, the first day I pulled a Rosiante and Law, about $80 of value. I paid $30 for the tournament. On the second day, Sunday, I pulled about $700 of value. I paid $35 for the tournament. So about $65 in, and a great time playing a super fun game. I do recommend it for anybody that likes TCGs. One Piece is super high octane, and it's just like counter hit. It's super fun. But out of those 2 days, not only did I have a lot of fun and I learned, but for $65 of value, I ended up coming out with about $800 of value. Why? Now, obviously, these are the pre-release prices. I do expect some of these cards to go down in value as more packs get opened and more of these come onto the market. However, that doesn't change the fact that these are very high value cards. The Sengoku, I don't see it going under, I don't know, 400, 300 maybe. It's a beautiful card in person. The picture is not going to show you how nice the card is. Super high quality, textured. The colors pop. Where you see the yellow circles in the picture, they're actually gold in the card, and it's just super eye-popping. Same thing with the Ground Death. It is super nice card in person, and the Rosiante Law is as well. Now, One Piece does, from what I understand, have guaranteed hits in not just boxes, but cases. And knowing that, I guess the market understands that, okay, there's a limited amount of these types of hits in a case or a box or whatever the case, no pun intended. Pokemon doesn't really work like that. I would say on the Pokemon market, there may be a wider variety of whatever specific product we're talking about. However, Pokemon is more collectible, so people don't put them onto the market as fast. That doesn't change the fact that One Piece does a great job in putting out their product, having high value cards that come onto the market at limited quantities. So what people would like to do is, if they get a chance to get some of these cards, they take them, they turn it into PSA for a high grade play, a PSA 10 hopefully, which in the One Piece world, PSA 10s are a lot easier to come by because the quality control is so much better. These cards are just immaculate, very high quality, so they deserve a PSA 10. A lot of times they come back with the PSA 10. Now the difference between a PSA 9 and a PSA 10 is like $1,000 at times. So the mixture of a limited quantity as well as high quality cards coming onto the market makes One Piece cards so much, I don't want to say more expensive or better for investing, but I'll say desirable. I'm not saying that Pokemon is not, it's just a bit different when it comes to One Piece. I even go so far as saying that it's a little more niche, which makes it better. There's less people into One Piece, way more people into Pokemon, which is why it's more niche. You even see PokeTubers on YouTube and wherever else talking about One Piece and not knowing the characters, and they'll say things like, the only character I know is Luffy. It's Luffy. The two biggest differences in the Pokemon and the One Piece TCG spaces, and I'll speak specifically to those two things, is this. Pokemon is a populist movement. Everybody knows Pokemon. Everybody loves Pokemon. You have a favorite Pokemon, whether you're into the anime, manga, TCG or not. Everybody at least knows Pikachu, Mewtwo, Charizard, right? One Piece, however, is a revolutionary movement. Both in the card game, which is revolutionary. It's the best thing out right now, hands down. I don't care about your opinion. That's mine. One Piece TCG is the best TCG being played right now. So it's revolutionary in that sense, but also the concepts that One Piece brings to the table, the politics that it brings in, the camaraderie that it brings in, is very revolutionary. And even the anime itself, or manga, there is no other anime or manga that I know of that's about pirates. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but I think that to be true. The two major differences with Pokemon versus One Piece is that Pokemon is a populist movement. One Piece is a revolutionary one. Not to say that both don't have their belonging in the space of society and anime and fandom and even investing at this point. However, these two factors will go into, or should go into, your decision making for both Pokemon and One Piece. If you don't play the game, I don't think you should get into One Piece. One Piece is much more specialized of a investment trading card game, whatever you want to call it. Pokemon, you can be in Pokemon and be sure that once it goes out of print, sooner or later, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, the value of that thing will go up. And I'm getting back into the investing side, which is what I started the video off with. So the conclusion to all that is this: Pokemon will be around for the long term. Fret not. Even if we have a crash or a dip or whatever you want to call it, it'll come back around. As long as you know what you're doing, you still have to know what's popular and what's not. And if you're just a collector, you just like to collect whatever you like, that's really the best way to do it, the most stress-free way to do it. But if we're talking about investing, you do have to play it a little bit smarter. However, for One Piece, you have to be a little bit more than smart. You have to be informed, not just on the manga, the anime, the TCG, but you also have to understand the sentiment around the world that One Piece brings to the table. One Piece is about revolution, freedom, and liberation from the oppressor. This is why in 2026, One Piece is so much, or it feels like it's so much bigger than Pokemon in terms of the hype right now. Pokemon obviously is going to outshine in the long term, but in 2026, we have so much going on in the world where oppression is apparent. You know, sometimes as Americans, we get bogged down with not just our vanity, but also our creature comforts that we take for granted. Other people around the world may not have those creature comforts, but I can guarantee you a lot of people around the world do still live happily, and they're more free to see the oppression that is apparent, but not to us. This is why One Piece is globally more accepted. And it's becoming more and more accepted amongst the younger generation in America as well. For this main reason, the oppressive nature of our societies today. And I'm going to bring this back to investing again. Long term, look for One Piece to go up. Depending on popularity across the world, I think One Piece is only going to gain in popularity. Netflix is talking, doing One Piece shows. I see a movie coming at some point as well. The TCG is absolutely crushing it. I think One Piece TCG is the hottest thing out right now. Whereas Pokemon, always been around, it'll always be a thing, but not as popular due to some of the market cycle hype and how hard it is to get cards for players and collectors. So I hope I gave you guys some context as to why One Piece is popping the way it is and why it kind of correlates with Pokemon in a couple senses. I think these two are gonna go hand in hand as the number 1 and 2 TCGs into the future. And not just TCGs, but it's hard to say about the IP of One Piece as a whole. It is getting pretty up there. However, I will say in terms of the TCG, I see it taking number 2 at some point. And I don't know what number 2 is right now. I would assume Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Might be lower. Magic the Gathering has been around forever, and it's still hardcore player-based game. So I know Magic the Gathering is going to be around. I would say number 1, Pokemon. Number 2, One Piece. Number 3, Magic. Yu-Gi-Oh! Get out of here.